Alright, here we got the chickens. And we're going to see how they go crazy over a worm. Here's a worm. Let the fun begin. Where are you, wormy? There. Oh, little guy. Little guy's got it. Little guy's happy. Can he eat in time? Oh, Mrs. Peepers going for it. Mrs. Peepers in the lead. Oh, Mrs. Peepers. Oh, yeah. Mrs. Peepers displays her dominance. Here we are, preparing for a battle of epic proportions. Here we are. It's time for a battle. We're going to have a worm off. Here we have one big worm. And 3 birdies are going to be dotting the worm off to see who is at the top of the pecking order. So our first bird, Mrs. Peepers. Mrs. Peepers is the most athletic of the 3 birds. She's the only one able to jump up on the edge of the cage. Mrs. Peepers, have something to say to our audience? Oh, Mrs. Peepers is a little defiant. She thinks she's going to take this worm off. Mrs. Peepers is the odds-on favorite as the top of the pecking order. Next we have May Shanahan, the biggest of the birds that are going to be in this battle. May Shanahan is by far the largest of the 3 contestants, but she's a little bit docile. She could take the worm off if she really applied herself, but May Shanahan is kind of a sweetie. We'll see. I say she has about a 30% chance of taking the worm off. And the final contestant in the worm off is Jane. Jane is a Rhode Island Red. Jane is the smallest of the contestants. Jane is the smallest of the contestants, but she has taken some previous worm offs. So Jane seems kind of docile and sweet, but when the worm gets into the cage, Jane does her thing, and she has taken the worm from Mrs. Peepers and May Shanahan. So there we have it. Let's introduce the worm into the cage and see what happens. Oh, it's May Shanahan. Oh, Mrs. Peepers takes the worm. Mrs. Peepers is going for it. Is she going to get to eat the worm before? Oh, Mrs. Peepers. Oh, the worm has gone in the water. They have yet to figure out how to get the worm out of the water. So it's a restart. It's a restart. Oh, May Shanahan, Mrs. Peepers again. And May Shanahan has got the worm. Mrs. Peepers. It's May Shanahan, Mrs. Peepers. May Shanahan. Oh, Rhode Island Red. Rhode Island Red is going for it. Oh, it's in the food rush. Rhode Island Red. Is she big enough to eat the worm by herself? Rhode Island Red is going crazy. And it's Mrs. Peepers. And it's May Shanahan. May Shanahan has the worm. May Shanahan has the worm. Oh, the worm is too big to bite down before everyone else comes to get it. And May Shanahan has the corner. She's taken the worm into the corner. Will she be able to choke it down? Will she be able to choke it down in the corner? She's using the perch as a block off. And back into the other corner. Oh, the other 2 are confused. What's going on? And May Shanahan has taken the... She's been unable to ingest any of this worm. This poor worm is going through hell. May Shanahan, yes. She's chewing. She's fighting them off. This is the fiercest worm off I've seen yet. Oh, Mrs. Peepers gets it for a minute. Oh, Rhode Island Red got part of the worm. This is unprecedented. The worm has been broken in half. May Shanahan, is she going to eat the other part? Rhode Island Red has already taken part of the prize home by eating part of the worm. The worm broke it in half. May Shanahan still working on her part of the worm, and Mrs. Peepers close behind. Rhode Island Red not satisfied. Oh, well, maybe Rhode Island Red is satisfied. Oh, and gets it all stuck on her chest. That poor worm, Mrs. Peepers. Oh, Rhode Island Red. May Shanahan still working on her part of the worm. Still trying to find a place to gobble it down. This is an incredible... Oh, and Rhode Island Red trying to take the entire prize for herself. Mrs. Peepers, Rhode Island Red. Rhode Island Red, oh my God. The smallest of the bunch. And then May Shanahan has it back. May Shanahan May Shanahan working on it. Oh, is it time for a finale? Is May Shanahan finally going to finish off this worm? Put the worm out of her misery. May Shanahan has the worm in the corner. Rhode Island Red trying to figure out what's going on. Oh, and the worm is back in the water. Back in the water. Let's try to start again. And it's a restart. Oh, Rhode Island Red! Oh, May Shanahan. May Shanahan. See if they seem to be giving her time to finish it off. Seems to be getting time, some privacy. Nope. And they're back in the mix. Rhode Island Red takes a peck. May Shanahan. And is it gone? May Shanahan with a quick gobble up. The worm has been completely... And that is it for today's ballot. Mrs. Peepers, who all thought was the odds-on favorite, gets no worm. Rhode Island Red quickly stakes claim to half of the worm, and May Shanahan and Jane, the two sisters, have taken this worm off. So that's it from the wide world of sports. 3 chicks, 1 worm, broken into 2 pieces, resulting in 2 winners. May Shanahan. You got any words for our audience? Defiant as usual. May Shanahan says she's big, and she gets part of the prize. Rhode Island Red, you got something to say? That was pretty good of you to get some of that worm. And Mrs. Peepers, I'm sorry, you're the most athletic of the bunch, but this time you came out a little short. I'm thinking they want a rematch. They'd like another worm, but till next time, signing off from Sacramento, California. Night all. Things somewhat calm here. We got Jane, Mrs. Peepers, hello Mrs. Peepers, and May Shanahan. How's everyone doing today? Oh, that's nice, Jane. That's very nice to see you. Everyone's taking this opportunity to have a nap. What's going on back there? What's going on back there? What's going on back there? Yeah, exactly. It's sleepy time. Is everyone going to behave? Is everyone behaving? Is everyone going to behave? Okay.